Welcome. I skipped all the beginning stuff there, but so office hours, you can hop in the Zoom room, just let me know, and I'm usually available on short notice, and so um, if you need to talk to me, that's either way is fine. Okay. Now, let's see here. So this Zoom link or my meeting ID. That's my Zoom room, and so I'll post my schedule so that you know when I have other classes. I mean, you're welcome to hop on in my other classes too, but might be a bit much. Now that I've started recording, right, I'll post this recording. It has to process, so, and I have a class immediately after this one, so it will be available later in the day. Okay, so it's not going to be available immediately. It's like a thing. I have to download it and then I have to upload it, and it gets weird. But and so they're not available immediately, but they will be available on YouTube. And I just have the link there. And if you want a sneak preview of the entire course, you can check out my old videos. But you'll get them fresh here. Okay. So let's see here. YouTube, good. The Success Center is free tutoring. So if you're not aware of the Success Center, they're in the library if you're on campus. But I think you can still book appointments to see them online. And so Kate Sidlar works in the Success Center, and she hires other tutors, and they will all be able to do, or pretty much all of them will be able to help you with this course. So that's really nice. And so they've already been paid. Now you just have to use them, right? And so there's a link to the Success Center there. And then, oh, I should change my, I've got hidden things just for me. Let's see here, switch role to student. There we go. I also like to post this Grit TED Talk. Maybe you've seen it. It's by Angela Duckworth, and she does a really kind of inspiring job of learning math, and which includes statistics. And it's not about, you've got a math brain or anything like that. It's all about grit. And so I encourage you to watch that. But I'm not going to force it on you, I guess, besides putting it at the top of our Moodle page. So good. Let's see here. We'll hold off on the course outline. So I did post the course outline, and we'll go through it. But I've also posted a link to our textbook, which is called Open Intro, and it's the 4th edition. And please stay on the line. I've got a prep. So it is a free book. But look at how beautiful this is. It's all matte and velvety, I guess. And so if you do want a hard copy, which I fairly prefer, they're, I think, $25 on Amazon. And so they're not, crazy, but you don't have to. You've got the PDF. But if you want a hard copy, this is what it looks like. And just make sure that it's the 4th edition that you get. Okay. Because they made some changes, unlike other textbook editions where they're all the same. The 4th edition has some kind of major changes. So you'll want to make sure that you get the 4th edition, but besides that, it's a great textbook. Okay. Good. I do have the chat open. It's been a while since I taught online, but I feel like we'll get there. And so if you do have a question, then just throw it in the chat or unmute yourself, but usually that startles me. And so maybe warn me with the chat first, and then if you feel it's easier to talk, then that's fine. But usually I jump. I posted a couple of things, such as the chapter videos. Now these I haven't watched these. Well, I've watched some of them. I haven't watched all of them. They're just available from the textbook. And so, and Mina is one of the authors. And if I ever get to meet her, I'll be just so starstruck. She's awesome. And so I trust that all her videos are amazing as well. But just in case you want to have extra videos, if videos are your thing, then they're all there. If they're not your thing, then you can ignore them. I've posted the slides that I used last term. So I taught this course last term. And so I might make minor changes because there were some typos and things like that. But in general, these are the slides that I'll be using. And so, so you'll have them, and like I said, I might make minor changes, but in general, now you have the slides for all the chapters. The lab schedule, no labs this week. You haven't learned anything. And so so the first lab will be next week. Now, I suspect a lot of you are in my online lab section since you're in the online class, but if you have chosen an in-person lab section, that's totally fine, probably with Steve, who has his desk right there. And so that's totally fine. And he'll have access to your labs and things, so it doesn't matter. But I think that you're all in my online lab sections. Now, for the labs, I'll be in our Zoom room here in case you have questions, but you will be able to just read the instructions and work through the problems. We are using Excel, and so we're just applying skills in class. I shouldn't say just. We're applying skills from class in Excel. And so, but you can do those on your own time. You don't have to do it in the lab time. Okay, so as long as you're completing those labs, then that's all there is to it. Okay, but it's a designated time where I can help you with those labs, and I'm available to help you. And so that's kind of nice. Kind of a somewhat tentative schedule, but I'll be sticking to it. We've got some holidays. So obviously reading break, there's no labs, but also for Easter, there's no labs because there's a holiday Friday and there are Friday labs. And then we have our lab sections on Mondays. And so then there's no labs on the following week because there's a holiday Monday, and so it gets kind of messy. But then we've got a lab in the last week. So just heads up there. Now, for each week, I give you a breakdown of what we are going to be doing. And so Tuesday, today is introductions, just course outline day, getting to know each other, or you getting to know me rather. And so on Thursday, we'll start chapter 1, and hopefully we'll finish chapter 1 because it's just kind of a brief section. Okay. And then after each class, I'll post the notes as well for each day. Okay, so you'll have the notes that I write, and you'll have the recordings, and you'll have everything. Okay. And so here, a couple of, let's see. Next week, we'll start chapter 2, and then just skip ahead to February 15th. I've scheduled test 1 on February 15th, which is kind of rude because it's the day before reading break, or I guess the week before reading break. And let's take a moment to watch this hedgehog. That's important. So you've got test 1 on Thursday, February 15th. Yeah. Now, it's possible that we don't get through all the material that I've had laid out, kind of a typical scenario. We should be able to, but in case we don't, oh yeah, I will be. Yeah, totally. And so, but in case we don't, I'll just cut it from the test and move it to the next test. So, so I'm not going to expect you to learn things on your own for a test. Okay. And so I will be posting the notes and the class recording after every class. Yes. Was the question. And then I put test two, where is it? April 2nd. See ya. Which is on a Tuesday, kind of mixing things up. And so first test was on a Thursday. It just kind of how it worked out. So, and then the final exam breakdown won't mean much to you now, but this is, I reserve the right to change it, but just to give you a general idea of what's on the final exam, then there it is. Okay. Nice. Close my reading break there. All right. So, I'll pull up the course outline, which is basically the same information as before. So, I'll change this to the date, course outline, January 9th, right? Woo, 2024. Oops. There. Okay. And then I'll post these after class. What's nice is in here, hey, the heck? My pen doesn't want to. There we go. In my notes, I have a pointer, which it was driving me crazy when I was online because I don't have a pointer. I'm used to pointing at things. And so same information here, but I will add that my cell is 250-864-8386. And oh yeah, I guess I should warn you. So I've got like wrist problems, carpal tunnel, I know. Old person stuff, I guess. My body fails me. And so my writing is always terrible, but it's even worse. And so I'm gonna try to avoid writing more than I usually would. But usually I get carried away anyways, and I write anyways, but just as a heads up. Okay. So my office hours, really anytime, and just let me know. Okay. One note that I do want to make, so it is in the course description, but if you've taken Stat 124, which is business stats, Stat 121 is the same course essentially, and so so you can't take both. Okay, so just as a heads up, if you've taken Stat 124, you can't take 121. You can't get any more credits. Okay. In fact, I teach Stat 124 immediately after this class, but in person, so that's why I have to be on campus to teach online. Usually I like to be at home and teach online. I love to teach online. I don't know, just seems more efficient, and I can be on my iPad properly and you can see me. I don't know. Maybe that's not nice. I don't know. But here is the link to the textbook that we'll be using. And so that's there. And in terms of our course evaluation, we're going to have roughly 20 assignments, meaning that each assignment is not worth very much. Okay, and so we'll have roughly 20 assignments. Okay, roughly. Okay. And so the assignments in the labs are going to be in on a platform called My Okanagan Math, which is an open source kind of online testing platform that we'll use. I guess your guys' tests will also be in MOM. And so all of these, let's see here. This is on MOM, which is My Okanagan Math. Oops, if I can spell. Kind of cute. And so I'll refer to MOM all the time, and it's just it makes for a very funny acronym. So we kept it because the original is My Open Math, when you call it MOM, and so we called it My Okanagan Math because we host our own server. Okay, and so you'll be working in MOM quite a bit. I build a lot of those questions. Some of them I steal, but especially for the labs, I'll build all the labs. Notice the future tense there. They exist. I built some last term, but I'll make them better. They're fine, but I'll make them better. Now for the labs and the assignments, you're going to have something called a late pass. Okay, and so a late pass is available. Oops. Okay, I'm going to give you 10 late passes. Okay, and so, and maybe I should draw an arrow here too. And so you'll have 10 late passes for the term. Okay. Now, what a late pass does is it extends your deadline by 24 hours. Okay. The only thing is you have to apply it before the due date. Okay. And so here, the late pass extends due date by 24 hours. Obviously, the tests and the final exam you have to write during the scheduled time, and so there's no late passes for those, but for the assignments and the labs, I'll give you those late passes and you can apply them as you need to. It should be relatively obvious. Now, I don't have a screenshot of what it looks like, which I should get, but to apply a late pass, if you click on an assignment, which I don't have any posted on yet, finessing. And so, but once you have an assignment available, just click on it. And I think there's an option to say that just says redeem late pass, and then it extends it by 24 hours. Okay. So just keep in mind that you have roughly 20 assignments and roughly, well, you'll have 10 labs. So there's 10 labs. Okay. So 30 things, 10 late passes, you do the math. Okay. Can we do the labs and assignments before? Well, so I'll post them as soon as they're built and finished. Okay, which is probably, hopefully before the weekend, unless I have to work on them over the weekend. So then they would be available on Monday. My due date is Monday because that's when the first lab is. So my first lab is at 10, I think, on Mondays. And so that's my hard deadline. But if I have them available, I'll make them available before the Monday, so you can work on it anytime. Okay. The labs will have quite long due dates, okay, just because sometimes I have to introduce material before we've seen it in class, and so we might just be a little bit jilted just because we have class on Tuesday, but labs on Mondays. And so it gets kind of weird. And so sometimes I have to introduce things in lab that we don't see until the next day. So then I give you lots of time to work on those labs. And same thing for assignments. I'll always give you a week to work on them at least. And so you'll have lots of time. Okay. Sometimes if we have a test coming up, then I make the due dates before the test, just because you have to do the assignments before the test, obviously. But in general, I like to give you at least a week to work on things. Okay, good. Let's see here. Now the learning outcomes, I'm not gonna talk about now because it would be like talking about nothing, but we'll come back to the learning outcomes at the end of the term as we review for the final exam, because it might be a good guide for the final exam. Okay. We're going to cover essentially all the chapters into chapter 8 in the textbook, and if we have time, sometimes I make it into 9.1, and so I've never made it all the way through chapter 9, but we're going to do our best. But definitely 1 through 8 is what we're going to do. And so just a general guideline. Chapter 1, we're introducing a lot of terminology, a lot of, we need to be able to talk about data and different types of data and identifying data. And then we move into summarizing data. In chapter 3, so summarizing data can be numerically or visually. Okay, and so we talk about those two things. And then in chapter 3, we're going to pop into probability. And although we talk about probability for the entire course, this is kind of a special case of probability. And my students never like it. So, but once we're through it, and it's okay. You're going to make it through. I think maybe because I don't like it. So I'm going to try to do as little of it as possible, and then get into things like distributions of random variables, which we do need for the rest of the course. And then finally, we get into chapter 5, which is going to be introducing the meat and potatoes of this course, called inference, where we use data to infer something about an entire population, which is all of statistics. And so then we talk about inference for categorical data, for numerical data. Now, those are all terms that we need to learn in chapter 1, right? Which I think you could probably get there just intuitively what each of these are, but we'll talk more about that on Thursday. Then we talk about linear regression, which is a nice way to end the course because it's basically drawing lines of best fit and using those lines to predict values and things like that. So it's kind of a nice calm way to end the course. Okay. Now, these department policies are auto-generated, so I'm just going to highlight the ones that I want to talk about. And so I don't give makeup tests, okay? Just as a statement, okay? If you miss a test, I don't need to know a reason. I'll just put the weight of one test. So we have 2 tests, right? I'll put the weight of one test to the final exam, okay? And so whether that is you missed a test because you were sick or your parents were in town, I don't care, it doesn't matter. I'll put the weight of one test on your final exam. So then you might think, strategically, shouldn't I be skipping a test then if I feel like I'm not going to do well? Aha. Well, to stop you from doing that, I'm going to say I'm going to put the weight of your lowest test, assuming your final exam is better, I'll put the weight of one of your lower tests on the final exam. So whether it's low because you didn't write it, or whether it's low because you didn't perform well, it doesn't matter to me. Okay, but one of the tests I'll shift to your final exam. Okay, and the reason I do that is because as long as you're improving, I'm happy. That's my goal, right? And so that's what tests are for, are to check in and see how you're performing, um and if it doesn't go well, I mean, there's a million reasons why a test doesn't go well, and so that's totally fine. I don't want you to freak out about that. And so for that reason, I transfer your lowest test weight to the final exam. And you don't have to set that up or anything. I do that at the end of the term. Now, usually I get emails, frantic emails saying, you said you were going to, and then my reply is, well, I can't do that until you've written the final exam. And so just, I will do it, I promise. And so, but that happens automatically. Okay? Now, one of the things that has never been an issue for me until last term, when I had someone who was passing overall, but then they decided not to write the final exam, don't do that, because you have to get at least 45% on the final exam to be able to pass the course. Okay. I think it's a very interesting psychological thing where if I say you have to pass the final to pass the course, everyone is kind of, on board with that. That seems reasonable. But then for some reason, when you say you have to get at least 45%, which is lower than a pass, then it gets a little bit, people are kind of like, what? That's insane. So just think of it as you have to pass the final to pass the course, essentially. Now, if you're, passing the course overall, you will pass the final overall. And so this is never an issue, right? Unless you're completely failing the course. But that's never an issue. And so you have to get at least 45% on the final for me to be able to pass you, right? Assuming that gets you a passing grade, okay? If you don't, the highest grade I can give you is 45%, okay? So don't do that. Don't skip the final exam. Show me what you got, okay? I encourage you to have any sort of calculator, as long as it's a calculator that you get to know and that you're comfortable using. Now, your tests are online, so it doesn't, I can't dictate what type of calculator you use. And so any scientific calculator is fine, or you could even use an online calculator, I guess, or Excel if you wanted to. And so you've got a little bit more flexibility there. So this is kind of for in-person classes. I will give you a formula sheet, but it's quite scary looking until we've worked through all the sections. And so I hold off on giving it to you because I will hold your hand through the entire thing. Okay? And so it's not going to be as bad as it looks, and it's kind of a downer for a first day. And then there's the final exam, which is cumulative. And so that's the entire course with more emphasis on the later stuff that hasn't been tested. Okay. Important dates. Well, you got it. Classes start. Last day to drop looks like it's January 19th. Just keep that in mind, I guess. And then the one that I want to highlight, because it's usually quite far out and it still is here. Okay. March 8th is the last day to withdraw with a W. Now, the reason I highlight this is because by March 8th, you will have a really good idea of, can I pass this course or not? Okay. And like I said, there are so many things that can happen, and so many ways that a term can go wrong that are usually out of your control. And I feel for you, but at that point, you need to make a decision, right? And so the reason I bring this up is because strategically, it makes more sense to withdraw with a W because it does not count towards your GPA than to fail. Okay, so if you keep going past March 8th, then if you know you're not going to pass anyways, then that fail is going to count towards your GPA. So you don't want to do that. So just make a little note, March 8th, or feel really confident. Either way, I've said it. And last day of classes, those are like the first things I would always do. Get my planner, school planner that they hand out, and then write down all the days that you have off. It's like the first thing. And then of course the last day of classes. So again, the Success Center, there's a link to the Success Center where you can get free tutoring, either in person or online. And academic integrity, obviously, don't cheat. Okay. I feel like you get grilled enough about academic integrity, but just don't cheat. It's easy. And be nice to each other and be nice to me. The conduct policies. And what else? Accessibility services and counseling. So there are lots of resources available through the school that I encourage you to learn about and use as needed. Okay. Now the labs, that's one thing that I didn't write down here. But the labs, we are working in Excel. Okay. And so here, labs are in Excel. Now you get Excel through the college, right? Through your tuition. I don't say for free because you pay tuition, but you get Excel and the hosts of Office things through the college. And so just make sure that you have Excel installed on whatever computer you're working on, okay? Because that's what we'll be using for the labs. Now, you are able to remote into a school computer, okay? But I'll have to look up the instructions for doing that. So if that's something that you need to do, then let me know and I'll figure it out. But I think most people have Excel or are able to get it on their laptop, which is going to be easier. Okay. Any questions? I feel like that's all I had to say. Anything else? Oh, so the midterms and the final exam are going to be online. Now, there are some stats courses where you have to come in for an in-person test, and I haven't heard anything about that. So, I will have to double check with our department head just to make sure that that's still the case, that we can just do them online. Because that's obviously something you need to know about. And so I'll double check, but as it stands, the tests and the final exam are just online. Oh, so the recordings for each lecture are gonna be here. So I'm at the top of our Moodle page, and there's the link to the lecture videos on YouTube. Now there's nothing there right now, but that's where I'll put things as they come in. Okay, so after each class, I have to go to teach the other class, and then I'll be able to download and upload. And so kind of by the evening, it'll be available for sure. Okay. And I'll also post whatever notes I've written. So these notes that I wrote on the course outline, I'll upload and post for each. So they'll be in each of the weekly sections. Yeah. Oh, I thought of a thing. So for the assignments, like I said, are hosted in Mom. And so the due dates are set in Mom. Now, as a courtesy, I add those due dates to our calendar. Now, they're not linked. So if I change a due date, then it's the one in Mom. So when you click on the assignment, it'll say the actual due date. And if someone has marked things completed, I can't change the calendar, and so then the calendar just stays. And so so don't let that kind of alarm you. If I change a due date, it'll be reflected in if you click the link, it'll say the due date. Okay, and the calendar is just separate. I like to do it because it reminds you to do your assignments and things like that, but it's just if I change a due date, then it'll be wrong. Any other questions? I'll hang around, but I'll stop the recording and release you for the day. And I'll see you again on Thursday. See ya.
Thank you.